All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast with me, Evan McDermott. I got a solo episode for you guys today, and we are looking at the sacred word, poetry, using it as a path to spirit, but ultimately a path back to ourselves. Anybody who has been listening to this podcast or following my work for a while knows poetry is really my own primary creative expression. Yet we don't spend a ton of time talking about it here on the podcast, and I would like to integrate it a little bit more as my own creativity. Lately, as you can see, there's not many podcasts that get posted. I don't do a ton of episodes anymore. And really, with the creative time that I do have, I am using it writing, um, expressing myself through the means of poetry. And for me, it very much is an inward process, and I have a tendency to almost go into hermit mode in a way when I feel the call to write and express. Um, and I want to explore this process, right? What this looks like, the meaning behind the word, why we get into poetry, the shaping of identity, the shaping of spirituality, and ultimately why that matters and how we all need to come back to ourselves um, as a method of conscious resistance to the insanity of the outer world and to find meaning in a system of survival based traps and distractions and pleasures that are truly meaningless, to make sense of the heartbreak and the loss and the pain and the suffering that is just immense and for many of us feels like never ending. So using poetry as a modality to come back to ourselves and to find that deeper meaning and to find that deeper connection to spirit, um, that's what we're going to do today. And hopefully this can encourage you to explore your own connection to spirit and explore your own connection to self, whether it's through poetry uh, or through another medium or simply through reflection, through hearing these words. Right? And before we start, I am working on my next poetry collection, one a year. That's, and again, anybody who's listening to this podcast for a while, put out one poetry book a year. It's always a collection of the year's work, and we are closing in on that time. It always comes out in the fall. And this one that will be coming out will be titled Winds of the Prairie. Really, it is it's a recollection and coming home type of poetry collection for me. Um, Moving through different forms of loss, finding deeper meaning, deeper sense of myself, and really the transformation and resilience that is required to actually live authentically in this world. And if you are interested, this is a call to action for maybe a few of you. With the last poetry collection, The Final Judgment, Poems to Remember Who You Are, I did take some guest submissions. I didn't really advertise that. I just more reached out to a few different people who were poetically inclined, and I got a few submissions. With this poetry collection, I am thinking about adding in a section of guest poetry. Now, I want this to be for people who resonate with these ideas, who feel the winds of change within their own life, who can express their own transformation or resilience or simply the quiet beauty of becoming who they are. Uh, if that resonates, there is a submission process. Click the link in the episode show notes, and it's simply a Google form that will ask you for your name and the poetry title and the poem, and you can submit the poem. I would love to include any poems from listeners here on the Fifth Dimension, or friends, family, connections, whoever it may be, who feel called to share their words and share their thoughts. So if you are interested, the link to do that is in the episode show notes below. I do look forward to reading your poems. The estimated publication date, I would say, is late October, early November. So realistically, I mean, this is Here I am recording this August 16th, month and a half, I'd say, to really get those poems in before I submit it for my own publication here. It's all self-published. I mean, I can kind of do what I want, but that's what I'm thinking. So it's open. Click the link, submit some poems. I would love to hear them. And if anybody ever wants to do a podcast on poetry, like, let's make it happen. I don't really know too many poets like talk about poetry with, but want to come on and share poems, like reflect, read, grow. Like, I'm all about that. So hit me up. You can send me a message on social media, or my email is just and then my last name, mcdermott@gmail.com. Send me an email. Well, let's talk about doing a show. I would love to feature a bit more poetry on this podcast and explore creative modalities, because that is what is lighting my own soul on fire, especially the last couple of months, navigating different experiences. It's been an interesting year. It's been a hard year. It's been a transformative year. Who I am right now compared to who I was 1 year ago. It's like a boy turning into a man. Let me tell you, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. And I'm looking at the poetry collection. Let me pull it up right now. I'm looking at the poetry collection. Right, and I got a good amount in here. And I'm like, and it's kind of like telling a story. And I'm looking at it. And I'm like, damn, there's some dark shit in here. Like, there's some serious like expression of those deeper of that deeper place, those shadows, right? But and we're going to talk about that in the episode, the expression of the shadow and making the unconscious conscious. I want to talk about those things in the episode. Um, but it's been a year of shadow work in that regard, as life has thrown certain curveballs. And if you listen to the podcast, if you've listened to a few interviews lately, I've been pretty open about some of the things that have been going on. So we're not going to go and rehash all of that. If you follow me on social media, you see kind of some of the updates here and there. There's been a lot of beauty. Don't get me wrong. For all the lows, there's been tremendous highs and there's been tremendous peaks. That's generally how it works, at least for me. Maybe that means I'm just like, I don't know, on this like weird spiritual bipolar like type of frequency where it's like you go whoa and you go whoa. I don't know. There is a baseline generally, but the simple yin and yang, give and pull type of deal is when you have those big experiences and you're able to resonate from a space of beauty and love and pure joy and pure inner peace. It's because you've recognized the deeper levels of despair and loss and heartache, right? So, hey, hey, that's the journey of life. I don't need to preach to the choir on that one. I'm sure a lot of the listeners understand that concept. So we've been on a journey this past year, and I'm excited to get this poetry collection out there in the next couple months, because I think there's been a lot of healing that's come about with these poems. So uh, excited. I'm excited, man. I'm excited, and I always enjoy writing people poems too. Like, I don't really have a lot of friends. Like, I got like two friends in my town. Like, realistically, like, no, that's not true. I got more than that. I got solid connections. But if I'm writing somebody a poem, there's only a few people I've written poems for. Like, you're cool people. Like, you're in the circle. You're in the circle. Like, that don't happen. That don't happen to many people. But I always enjoy writing people poems and sharing poetry, and having people share their poetry with me is a very, very um I feel tremendous gratitude when somebody's willing to do that, which is why I'm opening up the poetry submissions. So again, if you feel interested, click the link. I would love to read some of your guys' poetry, and I appreciate you being here and even taking the time to consider doing such a thing. If you don't want to submit poems, I would encourage you guys, hey, give poetry a try. And we're gonna have a little creative exercise at the end of this episode to encourage that flow, finding that space within ourself to let it out. And hey, maybe if a poem is inspired by this podcast, that's the one I want. I would love you to send that one in. I mean, you can send any poems in. You can send multiple poems in. It doesn't bother me. Send multiple poems. Great. Like, more guest poems, the better. I mean, if there's more guest poems than my own poetry, then we might be I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. That probably won't happen. Maybe I'll need to cut down. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. I want to include all of them because that's just what I want to do. So, anyways, let's jump into the episode. Let's keep going. Submit some poems. I look forward to reading them. I appreciate y'all for being here. Um, but I think it's important to address like why even fucking do poetry? Who cares? Right? It's like generally, that's what some people are gonna say when you bring up the concept of poetry, when you bring up creative expression. Like this. We gotta focus on this. We got politics. We got this. We got this. We got this. I don't got time for poems. I don't got time for this. What's the point? What's the point? Evan, what's the point? Why are you talking about poetry? When you can talk about whatever. I don't know. Name said topic that is supposedly important. You know, I think it's a valid question, actually. I think it's a valid question. Why poetry? Like, I'm willing to sit here and defend it. I will in a second, but I'm willing to acknowledge the people and the mindset of like, what is my own personal poems that I'm writing here? Like, what when there is darkness in the world, when there are kids starving, when there is violence, when there is a corrupt government that is looking to implement a new world order. Like, why am I gonna sit there and write a poem about my broken heart? Like why am I gonna do that? I get it. I get it. But ultimately, poetry is a method of self-understanding. Poetry is a method of giving words to the previously unspoken truth, the truth that you know within your soul, the truth that you know within your heart, right? And it can be about different feelings, different emotions, different ideas. You can take a larger concept, you can take something that you're passionate about, um, and you can turn it into poetry. You can turn it into artwork. This doesn't go for just poems. We're really speaking on creativity as a whole. Obviously, I'm a poet, so I'm going to speak in the language of poetry here, but it really gives a voice to the things that we have trouble expressing with just our words and our rational mind. Because poetry, for me, it doesn't come from thinking. The more I think when I'm writing, the less I write. It comes from entering into a space of presence. It comes from entering into a space of stillness, putting my hands on my heart, taking a deep breath, and being here and allowing the truth to come out. It draws us inward. It slows us down. It gives us a moment of peace in a chaotic world that will eat you alive if you don't take the time for yourself. I think we need to find ways, if we're going to ultimately solve a lot of the challenges that we are facing in this world that I'm passionate about, that you're passionate about, we need to learn to listen to the voice within. And poetry is a way of doing that. Artwork is a way of doing that. Podcasting is a way of doing that if you set the proper intentions and you go in from a space of heart-centered awareness, not just the emotional, like wishy-washy heart. I'm talking the energetic center point that connects the roots of who you are down through the earth to the spirit in your energetic body and soul. And that recognition of our interconnectivity, right? You know, it's funny because I think to do poetry, to create, it is the process of creation itself, right? It is the birthing of meaning out of mystery. It is taking the unseen and manifesting it into something that is more concrete. Like we are actively engaging in a creative process. And it's fucking beautiful. It's fucking beautiful when you can sit there and you write something that comes from within and you see it in front of the page and you've never really been able to express it in the way that you needed to, but there it is. Oh my, oh my God. There is nothing more beautiful than that. There's nothing more meaningful than that. Like it allows us to like witness ourselves with radical honesty, and connect us to the bigger picture at the same time. So I think we really need ways to kind of break down our walls, and we really need ways to kind of dissolve the boundaries between our inner world and our outer world. Because ultimately, I mean, if we're going to get into the truth of who we are, I do believe we live in more of an electric type of universe where we are beings of electromagnetic frequency. And so the resonance of the frequency within it it responds and reacts with the frequency of the outer world, and it's an ever flowing exchange of energy, right? And so when we can take our inner world, manifest something in the outer world, and kind of create this co-synchronized process, ultimately uh, we find a bit more flow, we find a bit more rhythm, right? And I think having a creative process such as poetry allows you to find your flow, not just in writing, but to find your flow as you walk through the different stages of life and go through different transformations and go through different heartaches and go through different pains. And, we need to take steps back and we need to reflect, and ultimately we need to let go. We need to plant seeds of beginning. We need to set intentions. We need to make difficult choices. We need to feel a sense of hope. Like we need something. We need to be able to look up on a starry sky and see that guiding light and feel that connection, something greater than ourselves. That's what poetry does. We're really touching something sacred through the creative process, through the expression of our true selves, through poetry. So that's what I'd say when we're looking at why poetry. Why? What does it matter? Why are we focusing on this as a subject today? That's why. Now you might have your own reasons, you might have your own ideas. Maybe I sold it to you, maybe I didn't. But I know you can feel that truth that I'm saying within your heart because it's heartfelt for me and I'm sharing from the heart. And that's what it's all about. So whether you resonate with poetry or not, I think sticking around, you're going to get something out of this. Um, and it's interesting, man. I'm on my fourth poetry book now. This will be poetry book number 4. First one was the Mystical Collection, which was actually the biggest collection. And the reason being it was a couple of years worth of poems, as opposed to doing just one per year and having a book out. It was multiple years worth of poems, every poem I ever freaking wrote up to that point. So I was going back and reading some of them. I'm like, man, wow, what is it? Like? There's certain poems. I'm like, I don't even know what this is like. Like I get what this is about, but like, where did this come from? Like, it's crazy to look back on some of the old expressions and versions of ourselves and see how much we've grown and see how much we've changed. Right? I was reading some poems about love and unity and like the merging of souls. And I use that reference a lot. Souls intertwined. I love that idea. And Rumi talks about this quite a bit in his own poetry, which is why I love Rumi, my favorite poet. Um, this like unity consciousness being the representation of love. And I think that's what marriage is all about. It's like taking the two and going into the one. like you're exiting duality, becoming one unit. Um, but I love that idea. But it's funny, man, because I was reading the poems from like 2020, 2021, like, and I mentioned that a couple times, and I'm like, bro, you have no fucking idea. Like, where did this come from? You hadn't experienced that yet. Like, you didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like, maybe as an idea you knew that, but you hadn't experienced that. And it's just funny to go back and read. I'm like, damn, was I like some sort of fraud back then? I didn't really experience. I didn't know. I didn't experience that then. Who's this about? Like, it's kind of wild. Um, but I knew it as an idea, right? So to kind of look back and read through some of the poems from back then and kind of see the ideas that I was talking about and seeing how they actually played into my experiences in later years, it's almost like sometimes when you're planting seeds with poetry, right? You're setting intentions. You're setting the stage for what you would like to experience. And so you talk about those ideas and you learn about those ideas, and so you write about them, and then you go out after you've written the poems, you go out and you live them, you experience it, right? So we need to be very conscious about the types of things that we are writing about as well. We need to be very, very conscious that we're not only writing about. Um, it's interesting because I think it's very important to write about our pains. I think it's very important to express with truth and honesty the things we've been through. I think it's important to express the shadows. But oftentimes, if you read some of my poems, I will I will lace those poems with hope and with um, like from the darkness will come dawn and sunrise, right? So I had a podcast a couple years ago with a gentleman named Ganu Roxwell. And Ganu is he's a musical artist based out of Los Angeles, and he's a poet. Um, and he told me this idea at the time, and it's still hit the nail on the head. Still resonates. I still think about it all the time. He said you need to be careful when you're writing poems not to pimp out your pain, right, and forge an identity that is rooted in pain and hardship, right? Because I could sit here and write a poem about loss all day, easy. I could just keep going in and in and in and in and almost re-traumatize myself and continual feed the wound. Like, let me puncture the wound a little bit more. Let me bleed a little bit more. Let me feel it. How helpful is that? Like, how helpful is that? Right? Am I pimping out my pain for a poem? So because it's easy, because I know how to do it, because I've experienced it, because I can continue to write about it. And I think it's important to reflect and it's important to grow. And I think it's important to go back to some of the things that we've experienced once in a while, but your sense of creative identity cannot be built around one said experience. It has to be built around uh, a forging of yourself and understanding yourself and exploring yourself. And that is an aspect of yourself, that is an aspect of who you are, but is it all of who you are? All right, it's like just the idea of defining yourself by trauma, the idea of defining yourself by pain, the idea of defining yourself by anything, right? If I wrote nothing but love poems, well, I mean, maybe that's one aspect of myself, but am I pimping out my poems to just love, to relationships? And then am I doing something that really rings true? Because I can continue to do it, and maybe I can continue to evolve that, and I can continue to explore it on a deeper way. Excuse me. But I think we just need to be very conscious about the types of intentions and the types of ways that we go into a poetic and creative process, right? It is all about seeds of intention. It is all about surrendering to the process in itself, right? Because when I when I write about something that is more deep and more transformative, and that is painful or is an experience, uh, there's a healing and a letting go that can take place, especially if I have not processed it before, right? There's a healing and a letting go. And for myself, there there's often times where something very traumatic happens. Um, I won't touch that poetically for a long time. I won't touch it for a long time. I mean, it depends on what it is. It might take months. Uh, in this year, in this case, yeah, there's, it's something that happened I didn't touch for months. I didn't want to look at it. I'm like, I can't really go there yet. Can't really go there yet. I'll write an initial thing, but after that, I'm leaving that alone. I'm letting that sit. I need to feel that first before I even begin to express it. Right? So don't force it. You can never force the creative process. You can never force the creative flow. That's kind of what I'm saying here. But as you kind of get comfortable in your own creative way and creative method, it's very rewarding to go back and kind of look at the growth and the maturation that takes place. I think it can actually be a good tool to watch your own development, especially if you are doing it and also organizing it. That's the one thing. That's partly why I put out a poetry book every year. And so I can organize it, so I can have it in one, like, here's this year's poems. Like for me, like here they are. They're in one spot. They're in a book. Great. I can go back and pick up that book anytime I feel like I need to revisit a certain chapter in my life. And that's why I'm going to keep doing that. I mean, at least I don't have any intention to stop right now. I'm never going to stop writing poems. So might as well just put them in a book, put them in a book. It's not necessarily about publishing and selling copies and any of that stuff. Like for me to organize myself, to have reflections of my life that is more concrete and visible that I can use and I can reflect on. Right? I was looking back at some of my old collections today, and there's stuff I haven't looked at in years in there. Years. And one of my favorite poems that I ever wrote, I read for the first time again today. It was in the mystical collection. Um, and this I actually have it up on YouTube as a spoken word. I haven't done too many spoken words on YouTube. I've been thinking about doing more, and just fucking haven't. I don't know. I can't say I've been meaning to do more. Otherwise, I would have done them. I'd have done them if I was meaning to do more. But that one's actually up on YouTube, right? But it was cool to go back and look because it's like it kind of represented the journey that I've been going on over the last couple of years since I wrote that. Um, let's read it. Let's read it. Let's read one from the mystical collection. This poem had to be written like 4 years ago. 4 years ago. Don't mind me. Popping in nicotine. They say they say nicotine's good for you. I believe it. I believe it. I believe it. That's my own vices talking. All right. Let's read this one. I keep bumping my head into the mic. It's not a very good spot. Let's adjust right here. Let's adjust. Let's figure out what's going on, Evan. Come on, get your shit together. I know you're not doing many podcasts right now. Don't keep bumping the mic. That's like the third time I've done it. I apologize to anyone who's got headphones on and they just hear that. They're like, clonk, 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 clonk. Sorry. Anyways, let's come in the center. Be with the poem. The young hero, pure radiance. Her essence is what I seek. I hear the whispers from Great Spirit. Heaven's here to bring us peace. We got lost in the illusions. It feels so hard to let them go. But in death, we must remember our spirit flies free. So what's it to show? The cycles explore into infinite. For Source, it's all she would know. Experiencing herself in awakening. Navigating depths of a new unknown. Can we fly like two birds when we leave from our nests? Can we love one another through the times of distress? Even when it comes crashing down, will we hold one another to be resurrect? It's an end the hero had always known, a journey to understand layers of shadow. Beyond the veils of great mystery, sacrifice is made for the truth of our home. We'll sing songs of strength so we can love through our pain, our connection, this miracle, a remembrance of the games that we play. Here's a chance to rebirth our prophecy. Eternal peace can take reign. I open my eyes, a freedom to be one with the change. Who am I? Beyond the darkness, beyond the light, a lover's heart open in this moment. In timelessness, we rejoice. Oh, the blessing to be here together again. A young hero arises, one with all with one. And that was the first poem I ever wrote where I felt like I tapped into something greater than myself. And this is kind of the segue into talking about poetry as a spiritual practice, as a spiritual experience. I remember when I wrote that poem, I came out of a deep, deep meditation. Um, and it was a very difficult meditation, actually. I remember for the first time, and I've only expressed this to one or two people, actually. I remember for the first time, like it's almost like there was this sense of like internal like fracture and divide that I was able to actually sit and witness, like a true fractured sense of self. Like I have this Evan, I have that Evan. Like, how do I bring unity here? How do I find and feel this oneness? And I've experienced it and I've felt it, but I feel this one pull and I feel this other pull, and I feel like two contrasting forces within myself, you know? And I remember writing that and seeking to feel unity, beauty, love, like being the hero that can rise up through the ashes of the fire and be content and to truly love and to truly feel. To me, poetry is it's like a prayer. When I write a poem, I'm praying. I'm expressing my darkness. I'm expressing what it is that I would love to tap into, like my connection with God. I'm expressing that in a poem, and that's again why when I talk about writing poems about the darkness, I leave that little glitter of hope, you know, because I need it. I need it. It's the only thing that keeps me going some days. I got a tattoo, one of my more recent tattoos. I'll see if I can show it on here. It's kind of a weird camera angle. I'll show it upside down. But it's a little mountain, and it's a sun rising over the mountains, and it just says "keep going." Um, because when I was living out in Bozeman, the woman I loved, uh, she ended up killing herself, and the thing that she taught me whenever we were together and hanging out, and it was always about like we shared all of our struggles together. She knew more about me than anybody else does on this planet. Like, and she taught me resilience. She taught me strength in a lot of ways. And so I got this tattoo as that reminder. Like, keep going. Like, even through the darkness, man, you gotta have that hope. You gotta have that hope. And it's been very difficult sometimes to find that peace within the darkness. But I do look down at that once in a while and remember, you know. And I wish I could have given her that reminder because that's what she taught me. And I think somebody needed to teach that to her on a deeper level, I guess. And I think I did in certain ways, but I wasn't there when she needed it most. And that's a guilt that hasn't gone away. I don't anticipate necessarily going away. Um, I'll be open and vulnerable here. We can share. Um, this was probably 3.5, 4 months ago, and she ended up calling me and on while I was in the middle of doing a podcast, actually, the one I was doing with Shamal and Tony, she ended up calling me. You can go watch that podcast and see me getting a phone call and say, "Oh, I'll deal with this later." And she was calling and she left me a voicemail apologizing for the pain that she was about to put me through. And after she hung up the phone, killed herself, right? And that's a very, I mean, if I just answered the phone, who knows, could have been even more traumatic. I did not much I could have done. So it's irrational to hold those feelings of guilt and resentment towards oneself. But when somebody teaches you those types of life lessons, those types of things to keep going and they're there for you, then you're not there. It's a very difficult thing. But that's why in my poetry, I have to give a little bit of hope. I can't just express darkness without a glimmer of light, you know? Let me read a poem that I recently wrote. This is a very recent poem. Very recent poem. Within the last couple of weeks. Um I titled it Rainbow. It's a very short poem, but it's dark, but the last two lines, hey, give me a little give me a little hope. Give me a little something, you know? I'm talking to God. Give me a little something, please. I'm on my knees. Like, damn, please hear me, you know? That's what like you got to express it. You got to express it. You got to like and here's the thing about prayers. Here's the thing about praying. You're giving yourself up. And I didn't realize this till recently. I've tried praying and I've tried connecting with God, and I've realized recently praying is really giving yourself up and saying, please, like, hear it. Like, from the fucking heart, you know? And anybody who has been to that understands what I'm saying. It's hard to put it into words, even for me. I am a poet. It's hard to put it into words. But let me read this poem. I'm kind of getting. I wasn't. I was not anticipating going down this route, but here we are. And I got all this shit I still want to cover. We're already so far into the podcast. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a long one. This is gonna be a long one. Um, let's read Rainbow. And I haven't read this one aloud before, so let's do it. Glad shards reflect off a man once blessed but hiding broken from a world that may never understand. Picking up pieces with nowhere to go, mistakes all my making, weighing heavy on a weary soul. An open heart floods love with pain, hardening the walls around numbed emotions that can't be named. Afraid of life giving away to time, before being given the chance to release the tears trapped in my eyes. Praying for storms on a sunny day, lightning crashes, but if the clouds can break, maybe a rainbow will whisper, it's okay. Just maybe, just maybe, maybe we'll get that rainbow, that glimmer of hope, that light up in the sky. It says it's all right. It's all right. We're going to make it through the dark days. We're going to make it through the dark days because we have to. Because we have to. Because we don't have any other option. So that's what I try and express in my poetry. That's how my poems are a prayer. And that's why I think it can be a beautiful modality to express your words to God, to offer them up to Spirit, to offer them up to the Creator and say, here, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm feeling. Hear these words. Oh, great Father. Oh, great Spirit. Hear my words. And in that way, I think it's also very much a meditation. It's a meditative practice. You know, you have to be present with yourself. I mean, if your mind is moving at a million miles an hour, I mean, here's the thing. You can use the mind moving at a million miles an hour and write poetry from it. I think there's actually a time and place for that because it can quiet the mind. Maybe you need to let something out. That's why the mind's moving a million miles an hour. But you got to be present with it. You got to sit with it. You got to be honest with it. You got to be open with it, right? So I think that's especially when we're talking about creativity being interlaced with spirituality. Um, you are using the method as direct communion with the divine. Again, I brought up Rumi earlier. I love Rumi because of his ability to do that, because of his expression of unity consciousness. Right. And, I talk about in my love poems, two souls intertwined, the beautiful journey. There's not going to be as many love poems in this upcoming poetry collection. Not going to be that many of them. It doesn't mean I haven't written any, but that's what it's all about. It's a communion with divinity. Let me read you a Rumi poem. I'm gonna read my favorite Rumi poem. I won't even read the full thing, but I'm gonna read one verse. Well, I'm gonna read one verse of it. It's called "A Great Wagon," and I think I've actually read it on the podcast before. But there's just something about it that speaks to the soul, man. I don't know what it is. I'll attempt to explain what it is after, but you feel it, you hear it, and you let it touch your soul in the way that it needs to. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase each other doesn't make any sense. The breeze at dawn has secrets to tell you. Don't go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. And I think once you're awake to that notion that Rumi is talking about, there's no unseeing it. There's no you can try and repress it, you can try and shut it down, you can try and turn off that side of yourself. But for me, personally speaking, that's what leads to my own suffering. That's what leads to immense heartache. More so than the world bringing in, the world's always going to have its bullshit. Like, you're always going to have trials and tribulations. You're going to experience loss. You're going to experience suffering. It's part of the human condition. There's no way around it. I'm at the point where it's like, what you going to throw on now? All right. Hey, I, I work out. Throw it on me. Give me more weight. More weight. It's like Sisyphus. I almost just said syphilis. It's not syphilis. Sisyphus. It's like Sisyphus, pushing up the boulder. He's enduring the struggle. I mean, I guess syphilis would be enduring a struggle too, but We don't need to go there. I shouldn't have even said that out loud. No filter. No filter. Not like syphilis. It's not like syphilis, but it is like syphilis. Not that I've had it. Um, but it's like enduring that struggle, you know, pushing the boulder up the mountain. Who is he without the boulder? Who is he without the weight? Shit, I don't know. We are truly forged through the fires of the Holy Spirit when we allow ourselves to be. Baptism by fire, baby. That's what it's all about. You know, poetry really becomes a spiritual practice and a communion with God when we don't take an analytical approach. That's the thing. Like people dislike poetry because they learn it in school and they got to do it this way and they got to do it that way there's no rules, baby. There's no rules to poetry. That's what I love about it. It is you, it is your ink, it is the paper. How you gonna play? How you gonna play? It's up to you. It's up to you. Don't let nobody tell you how to do it. Don't let me tell you how to do it. I'm speaking about my experiences. I'm speaking about ideas. I'm speaking about some of the deeper meanings. But I ain't telling you how to write. That ain't my place to do it. It's only you. It's only you. Come from the heart. Come from the soul. Feel it. Let it flow. Become one with it. That's what it's all about. It's a practice. It's a ritual. It's a ritual. Poetry is a ritual if you allow it to be. A spiritual forging of who you are. That's why I love it. That's why I love it. And that's what and you know that's what I was attempting to express in this podcast. The fact that I expressed it like shit, I could shut this shit down right now. I could. I could. We'd be good. But there's more we can talk about. There's more we can explore and dive into. So I think we should do it. I think we should do it. I think we should keep going. But that's the point I've been trying to make. It's a ritual practice. It is a connection. It is a communion with the divine. And it's fucking beautiful, man. It's fucking beautiful. So again, hey, circle back. We're talking about the poetry collection that's coming up. If you got poems that you're doing that and you feel that presence and you feel that communion, that's what I'd love to hear. That's what I'd love for you to express. That's what I'd love for you to share. So, um, and you know, I think in this process, to kind of speak to the idea of identity, I think poetry is very much a mirror. I think you know, one of the deepest spiritual things, the ways of taking accountability, is look in the fucking mirror. And it sounds cliche. And I apologize, I'm cursing a lot on this podcast. I don't normally do that. But it feels necessary. It feels poetic today, at least. I don't curse in my poetry. I've never cursed in my poetry. Maybe I have once. Never do. I don't know why. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll start doing it. Explicit books, rated R, 18 or older to buy. No, don't care. But poetry is it's a practice of mirroring. It's a practice of self-reflection. You know, you're looking at your deepest inner truths. You're looking at your shadows. You are seeing them. There they are, right here. There's no running from it, right? And so much of our lives is built on running from ourselves. Why do we distract ourselves? Why do we engage in pleasure-seeking activities? Why do we consume, work ourselves to death, always need to keep busy? Drink, do drugs. Why do we do all of these things? Why do we lust? Why do we commit any of these ideas of sins? You want to call them that? We're running from ourselves. We're running from the truth. We're running from the pain. We're running from accountability. If you can outline your inner truths, you can outline your shadows, you can outline your desires onto a page in a way that just ordinary speaking doesn't do it. That's looking in the mirror. That's looking at yourself. That's being honest with yourself. And I think we all need to be doing that continuously. Continuously. It's a lifelong practice because we're all going to fuck up continuously. We're not perfect. Stop trying to play the game that you're perfect or that You haven't made mistakes. And here's the thing. I saw this on a post on Instagram the other day, and I've been trying to really cut back on my consumption on social media. But I saw this the other day, and it rang so true. There's this idea in our society that we don't owe anybody anything, and I wholeheartedly disagree. I wholeheartedly disagree, and here's why. We owe our people we owe people, especially people we care about, our presence. We owe them honesty. We owe them communication. We owe them love. We owe them sacrifice. We owe them so much. Obviously, we're not compromising ourselves. We're not compromising our boundaries. We're not compromising our needs, but we owe people the fucking truth. And if we're not going to be truthful with ourselves, then how are we supposed to be truthful with others? Right? So by showing up and practicing these things for yourself, you can show up and practice these things with other people. You can be more honest. You can have healthy conversations because you took the time to look yourself in the mirror and figure your own shit out. That's part of the reason why I write poetry, because I'm trying to understand what the fuck is going on, and most of the time I have no idea. To be totally honest, I don't know. I don't know anything. I don't. I really don't. And I've had to have that realization with myself. Like, I have my own traumas. I have my own ways of thinking. I have my own projection on a reality. And when something happens, I can assume I know what it means. But most of the time, I have no clue. Right? So I have to go in and I have to understand my own feelings. I have to understand my perspective. I have to look at other people's perspective. I have to look at the bigger picture. And how do I do that? Oh shit, that's overwhelming. That's overwhelming to be trying to do all those things and take different things into account. Right? So for me, I write about it. I write poems. That's what I do. That's how I figure my shit out. Right? It makes sense. It makes sense. And because we write those poems, and because we start unpacking our deeper feelings, and because we start unpacking our ideas and expressing our emotions in a healthier way, we're then able to go into the world and use that understanding to have better conversations, to be more honest, to be more mindful, to listen more intently. Right? Because we start to realize, hey, shit, I don't fucking know. Maybe I can learn something if I sit here and listen. And oh, who'd have thought? Right? Like, come on. Come on. We all need these things. We need these ways of going in the world. So I think it can really be a beautiful thing to forge a deeper identity in the space of being more present and mindful, in the fact that we don't know everything. But I have my own emotions and I have my own thoughts, and let me sit with them a little bit deeper. It requires patience. We can't emotionally react to everything all the time, because when we do, I mean, it might be necessary once in a while. We're not always going to have the time. If something happens, we're not going to always have the time to sit there and write a poem about it. Let's be real. Um, but when that reflective time comes, and you often have to create that time, it's about how you choose to spend your time, about how you choose to show up for yourself. When we create that time, we can start to understand and unpack on a deeper level. All right, let me read you a poem on accountability. Where is it? Where is that poem? This one is from to this one is from The Final Judgment. It's not to martial love against tyranny. I'll read one from the martial love. I should read one from every collection in this podcast. This one is from The Final Judgment, which is the most recent one from last year. And I've read this on the podcast, but this one is all about accountability. It's looking at yourself, looking at your shit, remembering who you are. That's the title. Remember who you are. When wounds turn to scars, you and memories grow apart. Another chance to start anew. There's a devil on your shoulder. You might ignore it till you're older. It points a mirror back at you. So keep on digging dirt. Even love won't stop the hurt. You'll soon be buried by the truth. Gabriel's trumpets on arrival signal an end of survival. final judgment plays its tune. If you went and lived it well, you're left with stories to tell, written chapters from your heart. But if you ran from yourself, you'll walk through gates of hell until you remember who you are. And I gotta tell you, that's one of those poems that I've written. That's one of my favorites, and I think if you're interested in themes like that, the Final Judgment is the poetry collection for you. I'll say that. I'll put a link to all of the poetry collections in the episode show notes. I haven't really done that in a while. I usually just have the most recent one up there, which is the Final Judgment. I'll put a link to all of them in there, but I really think the Final Judgment that came at a time where I was trying to be more accountable with myself. It came at a time where it's like, all right, I need to start owning my shit for real. Like, I'm tired of running for myself because I've done it enough times, you know? And it's funny because it came out last October, November. I came back to South Dakota August, right before then. And me coming back was I'm not running for myself because here I can't run for myself. And I know I can't run for myself here. That's why I like it here. It's too small to run from yourself. You can distract yourself in the city. It's easy. I mean, I could distract myself here if I want. I could go get wasted on every Friday and Saturday, I guess, and drink and do drugs and I could numb myself into oblivion. I know how to. I've done it many times. If I really wanted to, I could. But I have more people here who hold me accountable. I'm able to hold myself more accountable because it's just me. It's just me. It's like you're gonna look in the mirror every morning and lie to yourself. Here, everybody's gonna see it. No, there's no hiding from there. You know when somebody's doing that here. It's obvious. It's obvious. You can't do that. Can't like I mean you can. People do it, but I can't sit. I wouldn't be able to sit with myself if I was in a loop of running and just keep running and running, running and running, running and running. No, we're not doing that. We're not let's get it started. We're not, well, if you wanted the dirty version. I won't say the word. I won't say the word. I'm not trying to get canceled. Not that I care if I get canceled. But the original title of Let's Get It Started, look it up. Not a Mandela effect. It's real. Um, that's side note. Doesn't really even matter. But yeah, can't run from myself. Got to be accountable. And I think, again, poetry helps forge an identity of being accountable. It allows you to do the necessary healing and shadow work to step into yourself with curiosity, first and foremost. Like, what are the unconscious patterns that are running my life? In what ways do I numb myself? In what ways am I feeling pain that I haven't been fully willing to admit? Where does this loneliness come from? What have I not let go of? What do I need to surrender? What do I need to offer up to God? In what ways am I showing up in my relationships that I don't really like? Right? What patterns do I have that I might not even be fully conscious of? And when you can start doing that with yourself, you'll probably start triggering people. And that's a good thing because people will pick up on shit. One of the greatest things I ever got told, I was triggered as all hell when I heard it, was um, it's like, Evan, I feel like you didn't really even take the time to try to get to know me. I remember hearing that. It was like end of August, last September, around there, last year. Trying to rush into shit and, just I thought I knew what I wanted. But because I thought I knew what I wanted, I didn't take the time to try and learn about the person in front of me. I was like, whoa, I can't believe you said that. You're right. And so since then, I've been very mindful of like, who is this person sitting in front of me, genuinely, in any aspect? Like, who's this person that is ringing up my energy drink at the gas station? Can I be present with them? Who's selling me my sins? You know what I mean? Like being radically present with no agendas for anybody. anybody. That's a tough thing to do. But you got to be accountable with yourself first in order to do that. Because before you can do that for other people, you have to do that with yourself. Who is this person sitting here listening to this podcast? Genuinely, who the fuck is it? Have you asked yourself that question? If not, maybe you should. Who is this person? Sorry, not to throw you into an identity crisis, but what are those patterns? What are those things you're running from? We don't run from things here. Maybe you're running from the podcast right now. I don't know. But we don't run from things. So you're still thinking around. Kudos to you. Kudos to you. Some of y'all probably hit the road a mile ago. It's like Evan's on a tangent today. Evan's going wild. When Evan hops on a solo podcast nowadays, that shit gets really weird. Like, let's be real. Let's be real. It gets weird. Some of y'all probably stopped tuning in after that. I don't know. I don't know. No running. But ultimately, at the end of the day, poetry is not words, it is a mirror. And it is a mirror for accountability. It is a mirror to look at the pains and the heartaches. Because your outer world is a reflection of your inner world. What you see in others exists within yourself. You know, if you're triggered by what somebody's doing, it's because there's something in you that's shit. You do the same thing and you don't want to look at it in yourself? Not all the time. Not all the time. There are disgusting, evil things in this world that should trigger the fuck out of you. And that doesn't mean it's an aspect of yourself. But what it does represent is there's a part of yourself that feels that injustice. And how do we stand up for that justice for the part of our soul that is lit by that fire to pick up the sword and go against that evil? Right? And you got to know these things. You got to look at yourself in that way too. So, lots to learn, lots to learn, lots to learn. And, you know, we've been sitting here talking about poetry and the meanings and why to do it. And I think one of the most difficult things is actually do it. It is finding your voice. You know, I definitely, especially when I first started writing poetry, I feel like I'd almost try and imitate other poems, like poets and like Rumi, or, you know, I didn't really have my own flow, my own style, my own way of going about it. Um, it takes time. We need to be patient with ourselves because through repetition, through practice, that deeper voice, that deeper sense of self and the soul really does emerge. You know, this very much mirrors, I'd say, the spiritual journey in a lot of ways, right? Like, fuck, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Oh man, I don't know that. You know, it feels, it's fearful. It's fearful. It's fearful to be vulnerable. It's fearful to open ourselves up. It's fearful to write things down on the page. Even me, still, you know, I have to break past barriers. It's fearful for me to hop on a podcast. I don't always like doing it. I really don't. You know, I like to hop on a podcast like this. There's a lot that there's a lot of emotion that goes into that. There's a lot that I'm exposing myself here. You know what I mean? And you got to break past those walls. I have to do that continuously. I have to check myself. I have to check my own fears. I have to check my own insecurities. It's a constant part of life. Those things don't just go away. I mean, through repetition and through practice, we become more comfortable taking those risks. Um, so just be patient with yourself. It's not going to be you write one poem and boom, you're fucking Rumi. I mean, maybe. Who am I to place that limiting belief on your own creative journey and your own creative expression? Um, but through that one poem, you will become you in the process. And you're not going to become Rumi, but you're going to become you. Like, you see, you just wrote that. Fucking beautiful. What else you got to write? Let's celebrate this one. Now let's write the next one. Let's keep going. Let's keep the journey going. It's infinite. It's an infinite process. And I think ultimately poetry is It's not just about the tones and the styles and flowing. It's about like it's really about sovereignty. It's about finding the freedom to be yourself and to express yourself. We talk about freedom in this country here in America. Like, I'm writing a poem right now. Um, there's a great book called The Human Zoo. It's by Desmond Morris. One of the poems I'm working on at the moment. And it's funny, a lot of poems I write in like 15 minutes. Like they just flow out. Some of them I start and then I have to come back to, and then I have to come back to them again, and I change it. This is one of those ones because it's like I don't really know exactly what direction I want to take it, but the concept is here, and I'm feeling the need to write it, but it's not fully there. I don't see the finish line yet. So sitting with it, sitting with certain ideas. One of the things I'm writing about, it's about the human zoo and freedom. How many of us are really living free? Genuinely. Do you feel like you have freedom in this lifetime to be yourself, to do what you want to do? I mean, so many people are trapped in a soul-sucking 9 to 5. They got this obligation, they got that obligation, they made this mistake because they got it, so now they got to do this, they had this, they got this, they got this, they got this, all over the fucking place. Their whole life is just it's obligations to the trap of survival within the system. And the system is designed that way. I mean, there's no shame in having that life. I have fucking obligations out the roof. I'm not, I like to think in terms of a spiritual level, I'm not dependent upon the system for my own fulfillment and my own happiness. I don't seek it through these means, but I recognize that even myself, ah, I got obligations, you know? And so it's about finding an outlet for your sovereignty and for your freedom, right? For you to be you. That's why we write poetry. That's how you can find your voice. And when you find your voice, you start showing up in the world with a bit more authenticity because you realize it doesn't matter what other people say. It doesn't matter like what the world's telling you to do. You can do you. You can be you. You can express yourself. And nobody can take that away. Nobody can take that away. When you write something on that page, you put it out there, that's forever, man. Until that last book is burned, that's forever. That's powerful. Creating something that's far greater than the individual self when you can share that. And even if you just write a poem and you share it with a friend, what type of seed did you just plant? Who knows? Butterfly effect. That's freedom. That's sovereignty. And I think it's very liberating because it does take courage to do it. It's not easy. It's not easy for me to come in here and share about my darkness and fucking pains I go through and all these things, like the fact that I live a fucking hard life. Like, it's not easy to talk about necessarily. I don't just go around in the world, and I actually don't really open up to many people at all in my circles. I don't. The fact that I'm doing it on a fucking podcast or in my poems and I put the poetry books out there, somebody who knows me just kind of like in passing, if they were to pick up my poetry book and read some of the shit, be like, what the fuck is going on with that guy? Like, for real. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It's just my poetry. It's just me, you know? So it does take courage. It does take courage, but you're offering people you're offering people something they can connect with because people think poetry doesn't matter or artwork doesn't matter until they are in that space where they feel lost or they feel hopeless or they feel heartbreak and they read something. They read a line of poetry or they see a piece of artwork and you know that artist or that poet gets it. It's like, that's it. That's what I'm feeling. They get it. And then you don't feel so alone. So, in your own expression of creativity, I mean, you're doing it for you, but if you do share it, you never know whose heart that's going to touch. Let's be real. So, um, I'm debating on we do a little practice here about inspiring creativity, inspiring a poem. Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. This will be a good way to wrap up because we got UFC starting soon, and I want to see the big middleweight title clash tonight. If somebody's listening to this a month from now, they'll be like, "Evan, you fucking idiot! Of course, Dreykus wasn't gonna win. He got steamrolled by by Chimaev, whatever. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. This podcast probably won't even be up by the time the UFC happens, so I'm just gonna look like an idiot either way talking about it. But big MMA fan, big UFC fan. Side note, I'm gonna do Rumble on the Res, and I was almost not gonna do it because it costs like 300 something dollars just to get a physical, and I'm like, I don't really know if it's worth it. But it got postponed, and if it does still end up happening, I was gonna do a boxing tournament. So we'll see. We'll see if it happens. If it gets postponed to a later date, I'm gonna muster up for the physical and just pay it and be like, you know what, let's go have some fun. I think it'll be fun. I enjoy the martial arts. I enjoy the sport. So we'll see. Stay tuned. I'll let you know if I'm going to be in a boxing tournament. If there's a live stream, I'll share it out. I don't know. You can watch your favorite poet go into the ring. I don't know. That'll be funny. All the kids I work with, they probably see me in there and be like, "That's Evan. What's he doing in there?" You know. Jesus. Anyways, that's besides the point. I'm a man of tangents today. I apologize. I usually don't go on so many tangents, but go so off topic. But I think you kind of have to take a lighthearted approach when you're expressing yourself vulnerably. You gotta keep it lighthearted sometimes. Can't be all darkness, can't be all sadness. Like us sitting here moping around, like you'd have tuned out by now. So you gotta go on a little tangent once in a while. All right, let's do a guided poetry exercise. And this is even if you're on the go and you're driving or you're on the subway or something, I don't know. You're on the subway, then you're in the city environment. Kudos to you. I couldn't do that no more. I was just in Boston a month ago, and it's overwhelming, man. Those cities are overwhelming. I nearly crashed into an oil tanker, like nearly died. Like I felt like I was a cat that lost one of its lives in that moment, to be honest with you. But it was a beautiful time out there, don't get me wrong, but I'm a prairie boy now. Prairie boy, living in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota. That's what it's all about. Inspires me. It makes me feel at home in the desolate rural America. Um, it's true American culture here. That's what I like. Anyways, all right. So let's come into the space, take a deep breath in, and out. Let's take a couple more deep breaths. Keep breathing and let's fully arrive in this moment. Notice any tension that may be present in your body. Let go of any worries you may be having from the day. Let's just be here now together. Now, if you are able to do so, I invite you to close your eyes. If you're not able to do so or not comfortable doing so, that's okay. You can leave them open for this. But as we are breathing here, I want you to bring to mind an image that represents your soul in this moment. This doesn't have to make sense. Just continue to breathe, but this image, maybe it's a flame, or it's a bird, or a storm, or a winter's day, a tree, something as simple as a shape. Don't overthink, just trust what is appearing in your heart and in your mind. Be present with the soul. I'm going to do this with you. Continue to breathe and hold that image in your awareness. Notice the energy, notice the sensations, notice the mood, the texture. What does it want to tell you? When you're ready, I encourage you, open your eyes. If you have a pen and paper handy, take it out, maybe a notes app on your phone. If you don't, that's okay. But I want you to write a short 3-line poem about this image. Hold the words in your mind if you're listening on the go. They don't need to rhyme, they don't need to be perfect, but just let the image speak. What is your soul expressing? For me, if the image is a river, I live right on the Missouri River. It could be as simple as the water carries me through their shadows and light, always returning to the sea. Take a moment to let your soul speak in its own language. A few words came to mind. Just be with them. Notice the truth that they may hold. This. This is your voice. It's the voice of your soul. It's unfiltered, raw. It's real. It's right in front of you. Poetry don't got to be so complicated. All it is mirroring what's in your soul, mirroring what's in your spirit. Let me know in the comments below what your words were, or maybe you want to expand upon it. Submit a poem, like we were talking about earlier, right? Ultimately, poetry, for me, poetry, it's an expression of who I am. And that's why I wanted to do this podcast. That's why when I share poems, sometimes I'm hesitant to do so, and it's vulnerable for me. I don't just share, like I said, I don't just share poems with anybody. I mean, obviously I'm reading some on the podcast here today, and I put out poetry books, and I hope people can take something from them. But when you put your soul on a piece of paper, or you draw it on a canvas, that's the truth. It's unfiltered and it's real. It's the deepest truth you can touch, right? It's a form of true spiritual expression. Like your words and the words that come from your heart and that come from your soul, like they are expressing an inner world that is so deep and so complex and so fucking beautiful. It's an anchor to who you are. Puts into perspective what really matters, right? I feel called to share another poem just as a kind of a wrap up. And this is actually going to be the first poem in the collection in Winds of the Prairie. This poem is titled Unfolding. Very short. But I'd like to share it as a wrap up because I think it puts a bow on kind of what we're talking about. My joy is a radiance, the sun's warm kiss upon my skin, a breath of life through open air, a quiet knowing there is more, faith in the mystery ever unfolding. My pain is a shadow, a tender heart shattered by loss, the hush before a coming storm, a river of tears that softens the soul, cries to a mystery ever unfolding. Can we see, with awakened eyes, one journey beyond the mind? Do we dare to know suffering as grace, to be fully here through joy and pain, held by the unfolding, shown the way? I want to thank you all for sitting here with me in this episode and being present and opening your heart and opening your mind to the wonderful world of poetry. You can follow my Substack, mcdermott.substack.com, mcdermod.substack.com, and I post a lot of poems on there. As well as when there's a podcast, I'll put the podcast stuff on there. Um, you know, I it feels good to have a platform and an outlet to where I can express myself, even if it's not a huge platform. It's not really what it's about, man. It's about having a place where you feel safe to express yourself. And you know, I we kind of have to create that space ourselves. We have to let people in. We have to choose to let people in. And I feel grateful that I'm able to do that and I have that space. Um, and anybody who doesn't feel like they have that space, you're here. Here we are together. You're in that space. Welcome. Welcome you with open arms. Um, feel free to share your poems in the comments. Submit a poem for the upcoming poetry book. If any of these themes resonate, I would love to hear from you guys. I would love to read your poems. Let's get a big guest section going in this book. I got probably 4 or 5 submissions last year, which was great. Um, let's get a few more this year. Let's get a few more this year. Let's have this collection, the author be Evan McDermott and friends. Evan McDermott and friends. Like that's who it's by. It's not just Evan. It's not just me. It's not just my expression. It's not just my heart that I'm putting out there. It's you guys too. And it's everybody who's listening to this, everybody who tunes in, everybody who reads the poems. Like you're all a part of this journey too. Like so I thank you for that. I thank you for being here. I thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And I know there's been an influx of new subscribers after a recent podcast with Nathan Reynolds, my dear brother. All the people who are tuning in for him, taking a lot of your words to heart, really guiding me on the path. So thank you. Many blessings. Many blessings. What a beautiful, beautiful journey it is. And like I said, be sure to subscribe, whatever platform you're on, or it's YouTube, or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Um, more episodes coming in the future. We'll see when. We'll see with who. I got a few ideas, a few lined up, a few return guests from the past coming back on. Maybe some new ones coming up soon. We'll see. It hasn't been the number one priority necessarily. And like I said, my primary creative outlet has been through poems, and it probably will continue to be so at least until the poetry book is out. You know what's funny though? I always get like right when I put the poetry book out, I always write like a killer poem right after every time. Like some of the best poems in this upcoming poetry book, I wrote right after the final judgment came out. I'm like, really? You're gonna make me sit on these for a year? It's just the creator in action, baby. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. But what that's telling me and why that happens, because the cycle starts again and the journey continues. It's really what it's all about. that's going to wrap up this episode. Like I said, I appreciate everybody tuning in today, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. And I will see you all next time. So long.